It's time for Ask Your Auntie, the show that gets real with teen girls about life. They ask, and we answer with tea. Tools for excellence and achievement. The goal? To help girls make better decisions in real time. When you can't ask your mom or G-Ma, ask your auntie. Now here's your host, Marissa Terrell, Esquire.
Got questions? Ask your auntie. I'm Marissa Terrell, but you can call me Auntie M. I'm director of the High Tea Society Foundation and the host of this podcast, Ask Your Auntie, where we provide sugars, also known as teen girls, with reliable answers to their questions. Now, I have known today's guest, Auntie, for many, many years. I guess we met when I was teaching fashion merchandising, right? At
Absolutely.
UDC.
Yes.
Is that right?
Yes.
Welcome to the show, Auntie Tammi.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
We're happy to have you.
Yes.
I have been trying to get you on this show for months and months. And why? Because you give great auntie energy.
Okay.
And you've got great stories to tell.
Oh, I have many stories to tell.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
So what you been up to these days?
These days, I think, in the middle crossroad of my life.
Okay.
So, yes, it's come the age where I'm trying to figure out if I want to stay in the States or do I want to globetrot a little bit, see what else is out there. I'm kind of well-traveled. And considering the United States has gotten a bit chaotic for my taste, I find peace outside of the States now.
Okay, this is fascinating, but you are not the only one who has told me that. No. Tell me about some of the places you've been.
Puerto Rico. I've been to Panama. I was in Costa Rica in March. And I had an opportunity to go over. I have some friends that have property and clubs and businesses in Nigeria. And so I've been trying to get over there. So that may happen this new year.
Wow.
They're doing something over there. A friend of mine, her and her husband, they own hotels. Okay. So we may do that.
I love this. But so while you're traveling, are you encountering a lot of Americans?
I'm encountering a scary amount of expats in Panama.
Are you telling me people are leaving? Are people trying to leave the good old United States?
They left. Apparently, there was a mass exodus that happened around COVID that I didn't get the memo. And so now, outside of the U.S., actually, between Panama City and I think it's Meridia, actually has the largest expat community of African Americans, specifically African American women.
Wow.
Period.
Amazing.
Anywhere. So they've gone over there. They have created infrastructure for themselves. They've created jobs and businesses for themselves. And they've created a life that is very welcoming to, African-American women that just maybe want to take a sabbatical or just kind of want to take a breath and breathe in a space that is safe.
Yeah. How exciting. I love this. Okay, Sugars, you see that? So you too can globe-trot around.
Absolutely.
Well, I asked Auntie Tammi here to join us, not just because she is fab and that she's local, but because she survived high school in the DMV and is now living her best international life, okay?
I'm trying.
Sugars, what do you think? Remember our rule, right? We cannot take directions from someone who is lost. Do you think Auntie Tammi can offer some helpful advice? I do. So let's jump all the way in. 2 feet. Okay. We're going to learn a little bit more about you, your high school years. So first, what's your full name?
Tammi Nicole Carrington with M-R-R-N-L because that's how my parents wanted it.
Okay. Thank you for that. Yes. Okay. And where did you grow up?
I grew up 2 places because I went back and forth from my grandmother's house to my mother's house. Literally my entire life, or my parents' house rather. So Maryland and D.C.
Okay.
Went to school in D.C. though. Spent a lot of my primary years in PG County.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what part of D.C. are we talking?
Southeast and Northwest.
All right.
Yeah. So I went to school. I went to high school in Northwest. I was always in Catholic school. My mother gave me a chance to go to high school, which was Crossland Public School. And my first year, I kind of lost my mind.
She
due
went
to
off the rails? Is that what
amount
happened?
of freedom, yes. I was supposed to go to Lorraine, which is now closed. I can't remember if Lorraine partnered and did co-ed with one of the other schools. I can't remember, but I don't think they're in existence anymore.
I remember Lorraine, though.
But I carried on so bad in the office that they said, well, we don't think she's a good fit. So, and I knew they would do that. So I was able to go
So
to
you had a
Crossland.
plan? Was that a plan?
That was definitely a strategic plan. And so my mother said, okay, we're going to go ahead and we're going to allow you to go forward with your decision, but just know you will suffer the consequences of those decisions.
So you went from all girls to co-ed and a big school.
Lost
Not just
my-
co-ed, small school,
Lost
big
my
school.
mind. Big school and public school is very different than Catholic schools. So it's not as structured. You have a lot more freedom.
Yeah.
I thought things were a big deal, like eating school lunch, because in Catholic school you have to bring
Your
own
lunch. That's right.
And so these kinds of things took me off the rail.
Okay.
So I jumped in head first. My grades really were not that bad. I've always been a good test taker, so I kind of breezed through that barely. But my grades did reflect the fact that I was skipping school.
Okay. You were having some fun.
I was
or what you
having
considered to be
lots of fun.
fun at that time.
What I considered to be fun. And my mother said, okay, time's up.
So how long were you at Crossland?
A year.
1 year.
Yeah. And she
I
said,
see.
you really can't handle yourself in this kind of environment, so it's time to go.
Okay.
So
That
it
must
was
have been
fun.
sad for you.
It was very sad, but believe it or not, I still have friends that I went to Crossland with to this day that I speak with.
Okay.
And, you know, the long running joke was, oh, the little Catholic school girl couldn't handle it.
Couldn't handle it. She
So
couldn't cut it.
Mom had to pull the plug. And so, but, you know, nonetheless, I learned a lot about socializing with children or kids at that time that was kind of out of my social circle.
Okay.
So that was a very interesting thing, as well as I was kind of awkward.
I
In
can't
high
picture
school.
it. I
know.
can't.
I didn't think I was awkward, but after I got older and looking back, I was awkward.
Okay.
Yeah, so that was something that kind of hit me in the face too in public school, because Catholic school girls, you know, we dress a certain way. We're supposed to be coiffed and act a certain way.
Yeah.
And then when you go to public school where the girls were a little more matured, you know, it was almost like, oh, I want to be a big girl, and it showed.
I see.
And I failed.
I see. So wait, were you the a creative? Were you sports?
I
Were
was
you-
always creative.
Okay.
I did play sports sparingly throughout. I played a little bit of basketball, but my mother always had me in ballet.
Yeah.
I was always in dance. So that was kind of my discipline. However, I really wasn't that interested in sports. I was more interested in like the arts.
The arts. All right. Okay.
So,
So
yeah.
Crossland, did they have like a big art kind of music?
They actually did,
Yeah,
and believe
'cause
it
I
or
would think
not,
bigger
I
than
did
a-
not get involved in any of those
Because you
activities.
were like learning the
lay of the land.
Right, exactly.
The lay of the land.
You were trying to live life
Yes.
in person and in real time.
Absolutely.
Okay. Well, then what was home like? Okay, so this was school. What's home like for
So
you?
home was like my mother, Renaissance lady. I think I told you that. So nobody kind of wanted to come to our house because we didn't have all the good snacks. My mother was very regimented, so she really didn't do all that, you know, eating things with preservatives in it. She taught us very early about health. She was very, very cutting edge about taking care of your health and it taking care of you in your older years. So I kind of got that foundation very,
Which
very
explains
early.
your skin. Gorgeous.
Thank you. No, she
Yes.
really hammered that home.
Okay.
And being very image conscious to the point where I rebelled because I was like, why do you care about what other people think and these kinds of things? And I didn't understand the importance of how you show up.
And that's interesting because DC at that time had these pockets, and there were like these pockets of these Black American elites, a lot of them affiliated with Howard, some, just transplants from all over the country who came. And they had a way of doing things. They had a very strong social clubs and social requirements.
Absolutely.
And you were supposed to sort of stay, this is that debutante circles and all of that, the big churches.
I was a member of Jack and Jill, and you had to really conduct yourself in a certain way.
Right.
And so I rebelled against that.
Okay.
I was always the one that wanted to rebel against the establishment.
And you fight the power.
Yes, prove everyone wrong. I was a revolutionary
Trial
for
and
sure.
error. Okay.
And even going back I was in the 5th grade, and I was in Catholic school, and we had to write about our favorite Black history icon.
Okay.
I chose Malcolm X.
Yes, ma'am.
I wrote a phenomenal paper. I got an F. She gave it back to me. She said, "No, we're not acknowledging him. You write about somebody else." I told my mother. My mother was like, "Oh, no. We're going back up there. They will accept this paper." Okay. And so that was a whole meeting with the chancellor, with my mother, and everyone else. I refused to fix it. And so they refused to change my grade and gave me a fail. But that was one of the pivotal, because I can still remember this at my age, pivotal moments where I understood, like, I don't know. I didn't have a voice as much as I thought I did, because I was raised to be very expressive, and I was allowed to express myself in a respectful way, but nonetheless, I was able to share how I was feeling. I did grow up in that kind of environment.
Which probably informs how you live and move about now.
Absolutely. So with you telling me, "Oh, well, this is not, acceptable to me." Well, I used to think, well, considering the nun was non-melanated, I don't think she was in a position to tell me.
Not about Malcolm X, right?
I could choose if you're telling me to choose.
Yes. I love that, because that gives me a very clear picture of young Tammi.
Yes.
Okay. So how about this? We are going to sort of get into our Q&A section in a moment, but is there anyone that you want to dedicate this podcast to? What do you think? Yourself at a young age, your daughter, anyone?
My mother.
Your mom.
Because although I still give her grief to this day, it wasn't until I became a mother that I understood what she really did pour into me.
Okay.
Because I used to always look at her as she's completely opposite of what I am and what I stand for. And I realized, actually, we're the same person.
Isn't that funny? That's so funny. When you do wake up and see that, that is amazing. What's
when
your mom's
you hear
name?
it come out of your mouth, it scares you. Anise.
Yes. Okay, Anise, this episode is for you.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we're going to get into the first question. Do women really have unique powers of discernment?
Absolutely. We have to. We're the givers of life.
Yeah.
So I do think that God has already established, because we are the portal in which everyone comes, we have to have discernment, because it's a protective shield that you have to have when you are carrying a child in your womb or when you're responsible for a child.
Right.
So we have to have those natural instincts and just, how we're made up from an anatomical standpoint. We have to have a discernment. The problem is that we are socialized here, especially in America, in a very patriarchal hierarchy. So the system here, kind of deters us from tapping into the discernment, because everything is rule structured.
Right.
Not based on feeling, and you're not being able to describe, like, I know this and I don't know how to articulate how I know it. I just know it. There's no room for that in this country.
No, because people typically they want metrics. They want to be able to quantify.
Absolutely.
And when you can't articulate, then now you're talking like woo-woo.
If you can't base it on facts, it doesn't happen.
Right, it doesn't happen.
Right.
So I absolutely agree. Yes, I do believe that women have unique powers. I find that many times, even though I consider myself a feminist, I do understand that there's a difference between the strength that a man has and the strength that a woman can have.
Absolutely.
Right? And so I feel like we many times have to tap into a spiritual side to level set.
Absolutely.
Because sometimes the scales are off. But that discernment, although it's something you're born with, you can lose it.
You will lose it.
You will lose it.
I've lost it. I got it back now.
It can leave. I feel like young girls, when you like little girls,
yes.
Strong discernment. They know I shouldn't do this, or this is a bad situation, or this is feeling icky.
Sure.
As they get older, sometimes what happens is the surrounding influences, they begin to question that inner voice.
Absolutely.
Based on what other, information that they receive.
External, all the external, experiences we have obviously shapes how well we listen to ourselves.
Yes.
How long we listen to ourselves. If we are not by ourselves or have the ability to have that space to sit with ourselves, we don't have the space to kind of figure out what's my voice and what's the influence of someone else, say my mother, my brother, whoever. Is this something that is fundamentally true to me? Mm-hmm. Or is this something I was raised to believe that was true?
Right. See, then there's a difference there.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
I think, and then it's really a two-part thing, because once you realize that you have discernment, then you start to try to protect it and to try to amplify it.
Absolutely.
Right? And you try to do everything you can to keep it strong, but you've got to cultivate it. Yeah.
You have to cultivate it. And what I found, what ended up happening with me and how I got it back is I had to step away from some friends. My core friendship group, if you really sit and understand who you are, you know that your core friendship groups are a reflection of who you are. Mm-hmm. And if you don't like her and you don't like her and you don't like her, then that means there's some things in yourself that you're not dealing with. And that you may not like.
Okay.
And you may be completely oblivious to it because you're so busy focusing on the external of what you don't like about them, but then you need to understand you attracted them as friends. Yeah. So that means that these are some things that you have to dig a little deeper. And again, if you are constantly, let's just say diet can take you away from yourself faster than any man, any drug, anything. Because if you're putting something in your body that is counterproductive to what it needs, then you can't really think that you're going to operate in your true fashion.
Right, because you wouldn't be able to hear it because your body is so busy fighting against and trying to clear out what you put in.
The junk.
It's preoccupied.
Absolutely.
It doesn't have time
it's preoccupied, and it's also something that can deter you or make you act out of character, i.e., too much sugar leads to hyperactivity. Too many oils and starches will lead to diabetes. We know that diabetes actually is more of a parasitic and a psychological disease where, the Snickers commercial, you're acting like a beast and then they give you the Snickers and then you calm down. That's a very true depiction of diabetes, because when your blood sugars are low, we all know it. We get hungry, we get angry, or hangry is what they call it. The minute you get the sugars or whatever you need to spike up that glucose, you're feeling balanced and you calm down. Right. And so these are the things that are happening now when a lot of our kids are not concerned with diet. They go for the good stuff. Yeah. And the good stuff is the bad stuff.
It's the bad stuff. Oh, so here's another question for us. What happens from one of our sugars? What happens if I don't listen to my inner voice?
Lessons.
Yes, experiences.
Not very good lessons, but nonetheless lessons that are probably needed for you to have to fortify yourself to ultimately carry out your purpose, whether it's good or bad. Yeah. They're lessons. And I say that, there are no bad experiences. They really are just lessons. And you don't kind of get that, especially as a woman, until you really get, I would say, in your 50s. I was a late bloomer as well. So a lot of the lessons that I should have gotten, I was like, no, that stove's not hot. Let me touch it again. Because again, when you're disconnected from yourself, you're not listening to yourself.
Mm-hmm. And so that kind of goes into as we are making decisions, and we're making millions of decisions weekly, daily, moment to moment, we're deciding things. But some of these decisions are heavier than others, meaning they can really take you down a different pathway.
Absolutely.
So it's really great if you can begin to perfect your inner voice and to be able to understand what it feels like when it's coming, how you react to it, and then building up this muscle so that once you hear it,
you obey it and you don't second guess it, and you know that it's coming from the raw place that God gave you.
Yes.
But I think that comes too with a lot of empowerment. And a
practice.
Lot of time when you don't have empowerment from the home, and I've worked a couple times with a cohort of junior high girls. And what I find is a lot of the girls that have, a craft, whether it's sports, whether it's art, whether it's whatever, those are the ones that can kind of tap into their discernment faster than those that are kind of like, well, I just kind of live for the weekend and my friends.
Right. So don't have a passion. Okay.
Right.
So this kind of moves into the next question then, because we're talking about listening to your voice. Here's one. How do I know then which guy to seriously date? Can I trust that voice to help me pick a better partner?
I would say this.
Yes. What does Auntie Tammi say?
Because I have had and made all the decisions for everyone when it comes to bad decisions in dating. And what I find is that your body's going to let you know. If you automatically feel safe, if you automatically feel like yourself. And what does that mean? That means that I feel safe enough around this person to tell him anything. Not necessarily the gory details, but say what I need to say without feeling judgment. Then that's kind of where this is the archetype of guy that I need to be with.
Okay.
If you feel like you have to look a certain way, you have to be a certain way, you have to say a certain way, and these kinds of things, the mask that most women are taught to put on, that's probably not someone that is going to be here forever, because we can only hold up that mask for so long.
Right.
And meanwhile, you're living in now anxiety, all kinds of fears, to keep the mask on, to keep that person engaged, when in fact, ultimately it's going to fall off and you're not living in your authentic self anyway.
And one more question. I like to help my friends. This is one sugar. She says, I like to help my friends, but is there such a thing as being too kind to friends?
Yes, ma'am.
What
Miss Tammi has made those mistakes as well.
What does that mean?
Too kind is, for me, and I had to do some real digging for this one, is that we walk around with this false sense of, I'm nice to everyone. I'm always the friend that helps. I'm always the friend that listens. I'm always, and not understand that may be, true nature to who you are. But in that, you're going to draw in energy vampires. You're going to draw in people that will use you because they see that you relish in that position, in that posture. And so if you, again, are not discerning, you're kind of giving away your energy. You're kind of always thinking you're there for somebody else, taking away from the energy that you should be giving yourself. And then you can be left depleted and then resentful because they're not reciprocating. And I find that, to me, when I was working with the junior high students over in Brooklyn Middle, big up to Brooklyn Middle, a lot of the girls that I experienced were not like us. They didn't have these long-term relationships. I've had friends that I've literally known since birth that I still talk to. All the way through second grade, third grade, sleeping twin size in a bed, we still talk. And it's because we did have to go through the bumps in the roads of falling out and fighting and these kinds of things. But we emotionally bonded in a way that I don't see a lot of the young ladies are doing now. I feel like a lot of the young ladies now, a lot of their friendships are based on superficial stuff. What's going on in your social groups? Social media, huge, huge, huge factor in the inability to connect on an emotional level because social media kind of postures us everything is external.
Right.
Everything.
Yeah. And it's easy to check out with
Very
social
easy
media,
to check out and very easy to say, oh, well, she's acting this way. I don't want to talk about it anymore. She's not my friend.
Right.
And cast away.
Disconnect.
Yeah. And so, but what that does is that also teaches us in relationships, period, how to be. And so now what happens? You become an adult. You don't want to do the work. You don't want to work through the problems. You just rather give it up. And we know that that's not forward thinking and it's not progressive.
Yeah, I remember, I think all that's very true. I remember one of the things my dad tried to teach me growing up was the difference between charity and love.
Yes.
And that, you can be charitable to your friends so that if someone doesn't have something, you might give them something, whatever, not to your detriment, but out of a sense of community.
Sure.
But that doesn't mean necessarily that you invite them into your space. You bring them to your table because everybody's not worthy of that.
No.
And that is sacred. That space is sacred. It has to be earned. So you want to bring somebody into your home environment. That's because they're tried and true, and they can't hurt you.
Absolutely.
Right? That goes for who you're dating too. Everybody doesn't get into the inner sanctum.
No.
Right?
No.
Which means also that you kind of have to back up and think if you want to be intimate with people, everybody shouldn't get that space because that's
right.
Sacred space.
That's right.
There's a vulnerability there. This journey is not. It is definitely twists and turns. It's like your own superhero play or something, like a comic book. You are the heroine and you get to slay all these. But sometimes it can be a little trying. And so we're hoping that through the podcast and through talking to these great aunties, we're learning how to listen to ourselves. Are there any tips that you would give on how to listen or hone in that ability to be discerning?
Yeah, that's a good question. Because now I feel like we have so many external distractions.
Yeah, it's like getting quiet to even hear yourself think.
Absolutely.
Takes effort.
And wanting to get quiet.
Yeah.
Because a lot of us, especially women, we want that tribe. We want that community.
Yeah.
And when we're going through something, we always feel the first, rule is to go to my friend and get the advice from her. But, if your friend is on your level, then obviously she would not have the experience a lot of times to be able to tell you, no, don't go left, go right.
Right.
Because you all are matriculating at the same time with the same thing. So I would say, first of all, try to really cultivate, and I know this is going to be hard for some of the teenage ladies, but really try to cultivate that relationship with your mother or aunt. Or, some older woman in the family that you feel the non-judgmental safe space. And literally listening to her, not because you think, oh, she's offending me and she's telling me what to do and she don't like the way I dress or how I act, but really listen to her because at the end of the day, there's no new news in this world. Everything is secular. So we're going through the same things, different times, but fundamentally same lessons. And so with that, I found that was my grandmother for me. And that was actually a lot of my mom's friends. I would sit up and talk to these women like I was grown, and they would allow that space for me to do that. But they also gave me gems. And, a lot of the gems were that, no matter what, sometimes we have to sit outside of ourselves.
Yeah.
If I'm acting a certain way, you have to be able to have the ability to say, let me jump outside of myself, look at this behavior. And would I agree with it if I wasn't me? We have to really start to understand how to move strategically. And what does that mean? Not just making decisions because it feels good all the time, but be intentional. I'm going to do this because I want this result. Women are usually not taught to move that way. That is more than likely a masculine thing that has been perpetuated. But as women, we have to do it in order, A, to be our best selves, to be successful, but to really be happy.
Happy.
And I think that's really what we all want. We just want to be happy.
Yes. Auntie Tammi, this has been such a treat. Thank you so much for sharing your tea with
absolutely.
us. Growing up in D.C. is hard.
It is really
It's hard,
weird
right?
space in a lot of ways.
But sugar, you don't have to do it alone.
You don't.
Join us every week for reliable answers to your questions. I'm Auntie M, Director of the High Tea Society. Contact us via IG at High Tea Society INC or send us an email. Send it to hello@highteasociety.org. If you want to donate, go ahead and do so. Text purple tea, one word, to 44321. We have the tea to help girls succeed, tools for excellence and achievement.
You've been listening to Ask Your Auntie with your host, Marisa Terrell, Esquire. The transition from girlhood to womanhood can be difficult without guidance. We have the tea to help girls succeed. When you can't ask your mom or G-Ma, ask your auntie.